These are the most feared kids in US prison. Watch as we discuss the horrific crimes and consequences of 5 different criminals to figure out the most dangerous one. February 27th, 2012. It was the smoldering sunlight shone down on the campus of Chardon High School in the quiet city of Chardon, Ohio. Students peacefully enjoyed warm meals in the high school cafeteria until all of a sudden a kid burst through the cafeteria door. He wore a shirt that said "Killer," and in his hands was a handgun, which he would use to bring chaos to the cafeteria. He would begin to fire wildly into the room, and he would injure 3 students. However, 3 others were not as fortunate. Following the assault, Lane was arrested by a set of police who had been stationed around his car. He did not resist arrest and was taken into custody without incident. When he was sent to court, he displayed terrible conduct. He wore a shirt that sported "Killer" in court. He wrote the word using a black marker. Furthermore, he would show a horrible court demeanor as he used foul and profane language against the families of the victim. In the court case, he was charged as an adult with charges for 3 counts of aggravated murder and 3 counts of attempted aggravated murder. He pled guilty to the charges, and in his sentence, he was given 3 consecutive life sentences in prison with no chance of parole. In prison, he was known to have several problematic behaviors. He was caught smoking marijuana and other contrabanded substances, has engaged in acts of self-harm and self-mutilation. Much like in court, he was known to be highly combative and defiant with authorities and security. After 2 years in prison, Lane collaborated with 2 other inmates to escape the correctional facility. However, after the 6-hour manhunt, they found Lane and moved him to a high-security prison. However, medical analysis of his brain function and hormonal levels showed nothing out of the ordinary. However, his history suggests that he had been the victim of abuse at home and school. His friends said that he was a mostly normal person. However, despite this, there are further accounts that he had personal rivalries or conflicts with the victims of his shooting. And before the shooting, he went on Facebook to make many disturbing posts detailing his precarious mental health. This is in addition to an unstable home life. Alyssa Bustamante is often referred to as the Missouri teen thrill killer. On October 21st, 2009, Elizabeth Olton, a young girl aged 9, went missing. The next day, the FBI is called in to search for Elizabeth, and consequently they find not only the body, but also Bustamante's diary. In it, it detailed her plot to commit the crime, and in her own words, "I just killed someone. I strangled them and slit their throat and stabbed them. Now they're dead. I don't know how to feel at an ATM. It was amazing as soon as you get over the 'oh my god, I can't do this' feeling. It's pretty enjoyable. I'm kind of nervous and shaky though right now. Okay, I got to go to church now, LOL." These matched up with the forensic evidence of Elizabeth's body. Additionally, when interrogated by the police for this, Bustamante cracked under the pressure and made a full confession to her actions. On February 8th, after Bustamante had been charged with first-degree murder, the defendants in her case were able to plead her sentencing down to second-degree murder with the possibility of parole. This gave her life in prison with the possibility of parole for 30 additional years. Currently, she is serving her life in prison with little misbehavior. In addition, she seems to be getting mental health aid for her mental health traumas. When I refer to this between 2007 and 2009, Bustamante was known to overdose herself on painkillers and attempt many acts of self-mutilation. This resulted in a diagnosis of severe depression, and she was put on some antidepressants. She had a troubled family background. Her parents were known drug abusers, and her father had been in and out of prison for several crimes. Her mother was also an alcoholic, likely using it as an escape from the stress of motherhood, abandonment, and dealing with an unstable and painful relationship history with her child's father. Bustamante's family was not well put together. However, she had been raised by her grandparents, who could provide her with a relatively stable home life. However, the scars of this trauma had sunk into her. This was further evidenced by her diary entries and her postings on websites like MySpace and YouTube, where she would make cutting and killing her hobbies. However, despite her awful upbringing and trauma on top of mental health troubles, she is not someone whose actions can or should be empathized with, outside of the need for factual understanding. On July 22nd, 2015, Robert Bever, 18, and his brother Michael Bever, 16, attacked their family. Using knives, they killed 5 of their family members, including their parents and 3 of their siblings. However, they failed to kill two of their other family members, Crystal, 13, and Autumn, 2. Crystal of critically injured in the brothers' attack, however, she was able to call the police during the attack. The brothers were arrested and charged with 5 counts of murder and 1 count of assault and battery to kill. Robert Bever pleaded guilty to his crimes, which avoided him the death penalty. However, this still meant that he had to serve out a life sentence without chance of parole. Michael Bever's charges were less severe due to his younger age. However, he was still found guilty and was sentenced to life in prison with a chance of parole after 38 years. A year later, the Bever house was demolished such that a memorial park would be built to remember the tragic loss of this family. This all begs the question of why did they even want to do any of this? Well, Robert idolized killers like in Columbine, and they wanted to kill at least 500 other people. They had a misguided idolization of these mass killers and wanted to go down in history right beside one of these men. On August 3, 1993, in the small village of Savona, located in Steuben County, New York, Derek Roby, a 4-year-old boy with blonde hair and blue eyes, went missing. However, on that same day, they found him. He had died whilst in the forest. However, the body had shown signs that this was done by a person and not some kind of animal. The body had bruises all over and had shown signs of strangulation and beating using some kind of rock. Additionally, the body was covered in Kool-Aid, and more disturbingly, there were clear signs of child sexual assault. The body had been sodomized using a stick. Signs of struggle indicate that poor Robbie was alive through the whole ordeal. The police were searching the village for any perpetrators. They were searching for 6 days and 6 nights. They could not let the criminal get away. What kind of adult would want a child the way that Roby was hurt? Despite their search, however, they were not able to find anyone who could or would plausibly fit the profile of someone who could commit the crime. However, one day, an adult woman and child, the Smith family, had pulled up to the police station. And before anyone could say anything, Eric Smith, a young 13-year-old child, confessed to the crime that had happened. Consequently, he was sent to jail while they sorted this out. A child couldn't possibly do this. However, in spite of their search to try and prove why the young Smith couldn't have done it, they found that all the details of the crime would have perfectly implicated Smith as the perp. They hadn't considered it until now. Simply bringing up the idea of a child being the killer would have been lunacy. Eric Smith was tried as an adult in August of 1994. They had spent a year keeping him in prison. In court, the defense had several arguments. He had suffered from intermittent explosive disorder, or that he was too young to understand what he had done, and so forth. Experts from the prosecution were able to disprove these claims systematically. Thus, Smith was sentenced to the maximum term possible in juvenile correction and had a 9 to life sentence in prison. In October 2021, after serving out his sentence for 28 years, Smith was granted parole and was officially released in February of 2022. Now he hopes to marry and have kids, and he even has hopes of becoming a guidance counselor for kids. However awful the crime, it is important to understand the motive of any crime. Smith had come from a broken home. His father was absentee, and his mother was known to be mentally unstable, despite there being no written records of domestic violence from the mother. However, she had remarried, and Smith's stepfather was known to be verbally and physically abusive to his stepchildren. Furthermore, Smith was a red-headed child with freckles, which made him the target of bullying and insults from children in his school, including making fun of his thick glasses, red-headed hair, and protruding ears, throwing him to the floor, and many more acts of bullying and harassment. I was angry all the time. I took my anger out on Derek Roby because he was smaller than me, and I could control him. I lost control of my anger, and I killed him. Smith was a good kid in a world that hated him. Everywhere he went, he would be hurt, humiliated, and abused. He had no one to talk to and no way to distress. The anger boiled inside him until all goodness inside him had been cooked. One day, he saw young Roby, a beautiful child with golden hair, blue eyes, perfect vision, and normal ears. He couldn't take it anymore. Why did Roby get to live a life free of trauma and distress? In a fit of anger, Smith had taken out all his anger on Roby, doing every single horrible thing that had happened to him to Roby. However, despite this, he was still a child. I didn't understand the full impact of what I did until I got older. I realize now how much pain I caused, and it haunts me. These are all unfortunate cases of mentally unwell or abused people trying to take control of their traumas. However, instead of finding emotionally healthy solutions to these issues, they lashed out at the world, leaving scars in the minds of those they hurt and ending the lives of innocent people. Because of this, I implore you to support local governments and take more care to pay attention to those around you to make sure that they're okay.